I would like to share about how inventions in history impacted various professions. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is my very first video on YouTube. You might have seen this photo on social media or somewhere else on the internet. It illustrates how professions can be replaced by technological advancement. Have you ever wondered how many professions have vanished due to new technology? Throughout history, hundreds of jobs has been replaced by disruptive technologies. Nowadays, many professions are high risk of being replaced by AI because of its rapid progress. No matter what industry you are in, there's always a risk of being replaced by AI because we can't exactly predict what AI will be capable of in the future. However, we can learn and make predictions by analyzing the past inventions and their impacts. In this video, we will explore how inventions have historically impacted professions, how long it takes for professions to be completely affected by new inventions, which industries are the most affected by technological advancement. Okay, let's go back to the 18th and 19th century, where many ground innovations occurred. The first one I want to mention is steam engine, which may be one of the most transformative technologies in history. In 1811, a wave of violence erupted in Nottinghamshire, England. A group of men broke into a textile factory and, using hammers, smashed all the machinery operating within. A few months later, similar accidents began occurring across England. Eventually, the situation escalated to the point where the government had to use military force to suppress the anarchs. Why did this protest happen? This series of events is known as the Luddite movement, which occurred during the Industrial Revolution. Discontented weavers and artisans who have lost their jobs took to destroying the machines. With the advent of the steam engine, the textile industry underwent significant changes. Before the steam engine, textile was produced through a cottage industry. Artisans worked at home or in small workshops, spinning yarn and weaving textile by hand. It was really a long, labor-intensive process that relied heavily on skill and tradition. When the steam engine arrived during the Industrial Revolution, it didn't just make the manufacturing easier, it completely changed the career landscape. Imagine this. Previously, industries like textile were dominated by artisans who worked meticulously by hand. And suddenly, machine power and steam could produce hundreds of yards of fabrics in the time it took a human to make just one. That was a huge impact on the lives of artisans. The new machinery allowed manufacturers to produce goods at a faster rate and lower cost. As a result, workers who rely on these type of jobs were in less demand as machines took over. There's some questions you might want to think about. Which professions almost disappeared and which professions evolved after the invention of steam engine? After doing a lot of research, here is what I found. It's obvious that manufacturing industry is the most affected. It took about 20 to 30 years to revolutionize the whole manufacturing industry with steam power machinery. This shift also created new opportunities, particularly in the fields of engineering and mechanics. The operation and maintenance of steam engines require a new class of skilled workers, engineers and mechanics, and these professions became highly sought after. Okay, let's talk about on the consumer side. The demand for handmade textile significantly decreased because factories could produce large amount of fabric at a lower cost. The efficiency of steam power drastically reduced the cost of products. Suddenly, items that were once luxuries, like books and clothing, became affordable and accessible to a broader segment of population. The era of steam engine, which lasted over 100 years, eventually came to an end in the mid-20th century. Professions dependent on the steam power began to disappear as another disruptive innovation emerged in the late 19th century, which is the electricity. Electricity was first explored in the 1600s by early scientists studying what they termed static electricity. But the widespread use of electricity began after the invention of electric bulb by Thomas Edison in 1879. And in the 1900s, along with the Nikola Tesla innovations of alternating current, electricity began to be used widely in urban areas, powering factories and homes, which led to the Second Industrial Revolution. This revolution transformed many professions and reshaped the economic landscape. Imagine, it's the late 1800s and at dusk, a figure walks the street with a lamp pole. Who do you think that is? This is the lamplighter, a familiar evening sight in cities before electricity lights. Each evening, lamplighters would traverse specific routes and light each lamps manually. In the mornings, they would travel along the same routes to turn on the lamps. I think this will require punctuality and allow walking, right? But cities began to electrify. Thick lamps were replaced by electric lights, which could be switched on and off centrally or automatically. And the Jora lamplighters was replaced by electricity. But they are not alone. There were also other professions that were replaced. Do you know how the ice for household was made before the age of electric refrigeration? Ice delivery workers played a crucial role in this. They harvested ice from natural sources like lakes or rivers or ponds during the winter months. The ice blocks were cut and transported to ice houses, which are specially designed to store the ice throughout the year. And these two ice blocks were then loaded onto wagons or cars and then transported to households or businesses. The profession of ice delivery was quite challenging as it required a lot of work and was labor-intensive. But with the arrival of electric refrigeration, these labor-intensive deliveries faded away. Refrigerators offered an efficient means of cooling that didn't melt away. It changed not just how we preserve food, but also ended the era of ice delivery workers. There are also other professions that didn't lose their jobs, but have to adapt to catch up with the latest technologies. Manufacturing workers, as factories transform from steam or manual power to electric machinery, workers have to learn to operate those new systems. With the advent of electrically powered printing presses, printers and writers saw a drastic change in their work environment. These new machines could churn out pages faster than ever, requiring printers to learn complex new setups and maintenance routines. These are the impacts on the professions after the invention of electricity. How about the economic impact of electricity on the general population? This is the price of Henry Ford's Model T in 1908, which is about $825. By 1925, the price had dropped to $260, which is about 70% reduction. A car that was once considered a luxury item became affordable enough for an average worker. Why did the price drop so much? It was because of the introduction of moving assembly line, which was powered by electric motors. Electrification of the assembly line reduced the time to assemble the car from over 12 hours to just 1.5 hours, significantly lowering labor costs. And the impact didn't stop there. Ford assembly line inspired countless industries to adopt similar methods, boosting efficiency and lowering costs across the board. From electronics to appliances, the principle of assembly lines are everywhere. As a result, the price of household appliances decreased significantly over this period. There is a question: have inventions ever replaced low-skilled workers such as factory or manufacturing workers? No. There have been inventions throughout the history that replaced high-paid skilled workers. What methods do you think were used for communication before the invention of the telephone? One major method was the telegraph, which utilized Morse code to send messages across vast distances. Telegraph operators were like the programmers of today. They highly paid professions in their time, skilled in complex language of dots and dashes. Mastering Morse code wasn't just about knowing the signals. It required precision, concentration, and a deep understanding of how to convey messages clearly and accurately. However, in 1876, a groundbreaking technology emerged that would completely replace the telegraph. This is the invention of telephone, which used direct transmission of voice, making communication more personal and immediate. And this innovation became the end of a era of telegraph operators. Other professions were also transformed due to the inventions of the telephone. Previously, many businesses and individuals depended on messengers to physically transport messages and documents from one location to another. With the introduction of the telephone, the need for such messenger service was greatly reduced for urgent communications. But new professions were created by the invention of the telephone. The first one I want to mention is telephone operators. They're similar to telegraph operators before, but they didn't require as much skill as telegraph operators needed. Their job was to connect phone calls by inserting phone plugs into the appropriate jacks on a switchboard. This role was very important as the telephone network grew. And the second one is linemen and technicians. The expansion of telephone networks created demand for linemen to install and maintain telephone lines and infrastructures. We all know the telephone has revolutionized the way we communicate. I want to highlight an industry that was profoundly impacted by the inventions of the telephone. I will show you a video. This is a scene from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, where you can see stockbrokers bustling around, making hundreds of phone calls each day to buy or sell stocks. Buying or selling stocks became significantly easier with the telephone. Instead of physical transactions or delayed communications, brokers simply pick up the phone to execute trades with a trusted client. How did the stock market operate before the age of telephone? Okay, let's take a look back at this time. This is what the Wall Street trading floor looked like back in the early 1900s. If you want to invest in some stocks, you probably need to put on your back shoes and head straight for the nearest stock exchange. Once there, you will see a lot of investors and stockbrokers bustling around. And you might say, hey, I will take 50 shares of Vivo stock please. And a trader on the floor would try to scribe it down your order. It was loud and chaotic sense, quite different from the click-out-a-button trading we have today. But wait, there's more. If you wanted to stay ahead of the game, you might have employed a trusty messenger boy to run your orders back and forth between the stock exchange and your office. These gears were like the original functions of high-speed internet today. So buying stock without a phone was truly adventurous at this time. If you live in another country, keeping track of current stock values was quite difficult. International investors have to heavily rely on things like mails or telegraph or expensive private cable service to get the latest market news. The telephone profoundly transformed the world of stock trading, introducing a new culture of stock exchange operations. Let's go to the next bigger invention we all are familiar. It's the technology we can't live without, the internet. It was initially developed to use in the US military and became available to the public in 1991. Since then, the internet has made the world feel increasingly smaller, much like a global village. Let me take you back to around 1990. These are the photos of lives before the internet and mobile phones. If you are 30 years or older, you might be familiar with this video on the show. There was a way of entertaining in around 1990. People had no other options for entertainment other than listening to the radio or watching to the television. Video on the show were essential to entertainment culture, particularly around that time. These shows, with Blockbuster being the most iconic, offered a way for people to rent movies on VHS tapes or DVDs. Customers would visit this store to browse extensive collections of movies, video games, and sometimes even music CDs. But as we move into the 2000s, the rise of internet and digital streaming technologies dramatically altered how people access and consume media. We no longer use DVDs. Streaming services like Netflix or Amazon Prime have taken their place. These platforms offer more convenience. You don't need to leave your home. There's no worry about late fees or no limitations on viewing time. As streaming services grew over time, the demand for physical video rental stores varies significantly. Blockbuster, once the dominant force in the entertainment industry, filed for bankruptcy in 2010 and closed most of its stores. The internet, through the fount of digital streaming, effectively replaced the video rental stores by providing a more convenient and efficient way to access the entertainment. Okay, let's move to the next. Do you remember the feeling of reading a newspaper in back around 1990? The weather was sunny and the air was filled with the sound of birds chirping. You were sitting on the balcony, a newspaper in your hand and a cup of coffee or tea beside you on the table. The front page brought about the exciting news of your favorite football team's victory. Inside, pages offer news that kept you informed about global and local events. These were the times we can never forget or get back in our life. This culture has now faded and replaced by the internet and mobile phones. You are now reading news from websites like BBC or social media like X or Facebook in a comfortable position like in bed. Like the video on this too. The print media industry like newspaper, magazines, or books have to shift from physical to digital format. Although many bookstores still exist, the demand for physical or printed books has decreased over time. Many traditional professions in this field have now either disappeared or changed significantly. Okay, let's move to the next trending topic. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. This is artificial intelligence, which is the most advanced technology the world ever created. Although AI has been used in various fields for several decades, its rapid spread around the world really took off when the ChatGPT was launched to the public in November 2022. Later in 2023, Other generative models are also released. These models can generate human-like text based on the input they receive. They can chat with you like a virtual assistant, help write articles, create content, translate languages, and even assist in coding. These AI technologies have become increasingly powerful. ChatGPT, for instance, is only 2 years old, and yet it's capable of generating text and images that are remarkably realistic and can be easily distinguished by the human eye. The potential of these AI technologies are beyond what we can even imagine. The inventions throughout the history, such as the steam engine, electricity, and the telephone, have replaced most of the manual labor positions, even though a few of the big positions were also affected. However, this time, AI is affecting all layers of professions from doubters or engineers to basic workers. There is a question you might think about: how long it will take for AI to be fully adapted in the profession, which is generally defined as adaptation rate, the rate at which new technologies spread and were adapted by societies. Let's compare the spread of AI with that of other transformative technologies in history. It would take only a few years for AI to achieve full integrations across all professions, whereas other technologies took several decades. The graph shows that the adoption rate has become progressively shorter because technologies like AI have benefited from the existing digital infrastructure and which accelerates their speed. For example, ChatGPT was introduced to the public in November 2022, and within just 1 month, it was widely used worldwide. And the final question: what professions or jobs are risks of being replaced by AI? You are risks of being replaced by AI as long as you are doing repetitive tasks. These several factors to consider when discussing about the AI replacement. And here I summarize the main 4 factors. I will take you more detail about this in the next video.